The laziest person on your team can be more protected than you. And that is not a flaw in the system. It is exactly how the system was designed to work. You arrive early. You solve what nobody wants to solve. You carry entire projects on your shoulders. You do your job and the work others leave unfinished. And at the end of the quarter, when people talk about recognition, visibility, and who moves forward, the name that appears most often is not yours. It is someone who did nothing. That is not coincidence. There is a logic behind it. And understanding it will not make you cynical. It will make you more intelligent inside a system you have been operating without knowing the real rules. Reason 1. Lazy employees know the exact minimum. There is an invisible line in every company, a line below which consequences become real. Above that line, there is a wide space where it is possible to do very little without triggering any formal action. Lazy employees know that line with a level of precision that most serious professionals never stop to calculate. They do not know what is good. They do not know what is excellent. They know what is enough to avoid being questioned. And they stay there, still, safe. You, on the other hand, never thought about that line. You thought about not disappointing, about exceeding expectations, about being someone people can rely on. And that, which seems virtuous, comes with a cost that almost nobody names. When you always do more than what is asked, the company adjusts what it expects from you upward. And what it expects from the colleague who does nothing stays exactly where it was. The standard splits. And the more time passes, the harder it becomes to leave that dynamic without looking like you are failing. There is a name for this inside organizations: the high-performance tax. It is not a metaphor. It is a real mechanism. The more reliable you are, the more work you are assigned. The more work you take without complaining, the more invisible your real limit becomes. And the more invisible your limit is, the more you become the permanent emergency solution, while the lazy employee stays at their pace without consequences. Your excess responsibility is financing their comfort, and nobody says it out loud because the work still gets delivered. And this is where most people get it wrong. The problem is not that the lazy employee does little, it is that the system does not need them to do more. Reason 2. They know exactly when to appear. Lazy employees do not work all the time, but when they do it at the right moment. Think about the last meeting with leadership your team had. The colleague who had been absent all week, the one who did not respond to emails, the one who did not finish their part of the report, suddenly was there, focused, with a comment ready. 2 minutes of visible participation in front of decision makers, and they left that meeting with more presence than you, who had prepared all the material they presented as general context. That was not improvisation. It was strategic investment of effort. They do little, but they do that little where it generates the highest return in image. Meanwhile, you are solving what nobody sees. Documenting, coordinating, cleaning up other people's mistakes. The real work, the one that sustains the operation, is almost always the work that generates the least visibility. Not because it does not matter, but because the company did not build mechanisms to recognize it. The lazy employee does not survive because of performance. They survive because of convenience. They understood that 10% of their real output has the least impact on their career. What matters is how they are perceived, who they speak to, who sees them working when it matters to be seen. And while you invest 90% of your energy in real results, they invest 90% in image. I'm not telling you to do the same. I'm telling you to understand the game that is happening around you, because operating without seeing it is what leaves you exposed. If you have already seen this in your team and nobody names it, subscribe to the channel and turn on the notification bell. I publish content exactly for people who already know something is off, but do not yet have the language to explain it. Reason 3. They are never responsible for what fails. And this is where most people get it completely wrong. It is not that the lazy employee is lucky. It is that the system is built to tolerate them. Lazy employees are rarely responsible for their failures, not because of luck, but because they learned not to be formally involved in what can go wrong. Every time there is a risky project, they avoid committing. Not aggressively. Precisely, they say they are too busy. that they do not have the right tools, that they do not fully understand the scope, and in that process of avoiding responsibility, they silently transfer the work to whoever does commit. Your team has a deadline in 3 days. The lazy colleague's part is not progressing. You know it. They know it. And both of you know what is going to happen. Either you cover that part so the project does not collapse, or the project collapses, and you carry part of the consequences because you were involved. They know you will not let the project fail, and that works as their guarantee. If the work keeps getting done, the problem does not exist, even if someone is not working. When the project succeeds, they return. They remember having contributed. They mention conversations, context, minor details that place them inside the success without having carried the weight. When the project fails, they were not there. Not formally, not on record. And if something failed, it was because the person who was there could not sustain everything. This mechanism has a name: hidden delegation. It is not the manager delegating downward. It is the lazy colleague delegating sideways, without formal authority, using deadlines and your sense of responsibility as leverage. The problem is not that they do little. The problem is that you cover too much. Reason 4. They do not create visible problems for decision makers. And this is where most people get stuck for years. Because this is the point where the system stops looking unfair and starts looking logical. From your perspective, the lazy employee creates problems constantly. But from the perspective of the person making decisions, the problems they create are problems you solve. What reaches the manager's desk is the result, not the process. And the result, in most cases, arrived because you intervened. The colleague who does nothing does not create direct conflict with leadership. They do not argue. They do not question. They do not expose structural problems that make people in power uncomfortable. They do not ask difficult questions in meetings. They do not reveal contradictions. They do not represent any symbolic or operational threat to those above them. And that, within the logic of many leaders, makes them administratively convenient. Managing someone who constantly points out problems, who has opinions, who needs recognition, who questions decisions, requires effort. Managing someone who simply exists and does not create noise requires nothing. The lazy employee is easy to manage, and for many managers who already have too many fires to put out, that is enough. And complaints from the team about uneven workload? They exist, but the work still got done. So it is not an urgent problem. It is a climate issue, and climate can always wait. What this creates in you is not just frustration. It is a specific kind of moral fatigue that happens when effort does not translate into protection, when doing the right thing does not guarantee recognition, when the system rewards convenience and punishes reliability. You were not exaggerating. You were not being too sensitive. You were reading the system correctly. You just did it with incomplete rules. What changes when you understand this? This is not solved with more effort. It is solved with strategy. Understanding how this mechanism works is not about becoming lazy. It is about stopping being the invisible solution of a system that does not recognize you. It is about learning to manage your visibility with the same intelligence you use to manage your performance. It is about stopping carrying other people's weight without any real professional return. It requires knowing when it benefits you to appear, when it benefits you to document, when it benefits you to delegate back with precision, and when the environment has no solution and you need a planned exit. Because continuing to be the most reliable person on the team without managing your visibility does not protect you. It exhausts you. The next time you see a lazy person remain untouched while you carry everything, do not ask why nobody does anything. Ask who is absorbing the cost of keeping them there. If the answer is you, the system is not the only problem. Your strategy is too. And until you change it, nothing else will change. Subscribe to the channel, turn on the notification bell, and leave a like on this video. I create content exactly for people who have already gone through too much to keep entering professional environments without understanding what is really at stake. The system has rules. Now you know the ones that matter most.